But his decision not to visit the southern border this week during a trip to Texas has been criticized by the right and even some on the left. We'll talk with a key House leader in a moment. But first, the governor of Texas, who met with President Obama this week, Rick Perry. Governor Perry, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Good morning.
Let me ask you, Governor, first of all, about the call you and others have made to send the National Guard down to the border. What exactly would National Guardsmen and women do on the border?
Well, we called some 4 years ago for 1,000 National Guard troops to temporarily go to the border so that they could help push forward that show of force, if you will. And they're there for a limited period of time until you have the opportunity to train up some 3,000 more Border Patrol agents that would go and replace them. What that does, and you move the Border Patrol forward. The President was not even aware that his Border Patrol was back 40 or 45 miles away from the border at these checkpoints. They need to be right on the river. They need to be there as a show of force, because that's the message that gets sent back very quickly to Central America. And it's important to do that because this flood of children is pulling away the Border Patrol from their normal duties of keeping bad people, keeping the drug cartels. They're being distracted. So that, I will suggest to you, is a very obvious reason that those National Guard troops could come play an important role.
But if you strung them out along the border, National Guardsmen and women, they're not, under the law, allowed to apprehend any of these children that are crossing, are they?
Well, the issue is with being able to send that message, because it's the visual of it, I think, that is the most important. And we know that. We listen to the conversations, or I should say their conversations are being monitored with calls back to Central America. And the message is, hey, come on up here. Everything is great. They're taking care of us. And that needs to stop, because if you don't stop the bleeding, if you don't staunch this flow of individuals that are coming up here, this is only going to get worse. And at that particular point in time, the size of this crisis is even going to be more monumental.
I think nearly everybody agrees with that, Governor, but the question I'm trying to get at with you is this. If these children who have undergone these harrowing journeys to escape from the most desperate conditions in their home countries have gotten this far, are they really going to be deterred by the presence of troops along the border who won't shoot them and can't arrest them?
And I think we're talking about two different things here. And what we're talking about is sending the message back now so that we can staunch the bleeding. Those that are already here, to address them, to humanitarily take care of them, to make sure that they are safe, process them as quickly as you can, to reunite them with their families. That's the most humanitarian thing that we can do. And the National Guard is absolutely a trained group of men and women that can address that particular function, and one that they should. They're not there in a vacuum. We have massive amounts of Texas law enforcement now, whether it's our Texas Ranger recon teams there. You saw some of that on Fox this last week with the boats that we have in the river, the Texas Parks and Wildlife. Those are all law enforcement individuals who can, in fact, arrest those that have illegally come in and appropriately deal with them. But more importantly, this is allowing the Border Patrol to get back to what they are supposed to do. Right now, reports of up to 70% of them are taking care of these young people who have come in rather than doing their job of securing the border.
Governor, let me turn, if I can, to the President's comments the other day after his meeting with you, in which he said that he hoped that you would put the heat on the Texas delegation, Texas congressional delegation, to pass this nearly $4 billion measure that he's proposing to deal with this crisis. First of all, what do you think about that proposal? And second, are you prepared to pressure, or at least encourage, the members of the Texas delegation to vote for it?
Well, I appreciate the time that the President gave me. I think it was important for him to take time and to listen to what is really going on the border. I do think he should go to the border himself and take a look at this, just like some of his Democrat colleagues and a number of us on the Republican side want him to. As I look at that piece of legislation, it is a very large amount of money, and as you analyze it, very little of it is for border security. And I think until he gets realistic about the problem and how you deal with the problem, and it is a border security issue. And we've got a track record now of 5+ years of him disregarding what's going on the border. So here's his opportunity to truly lead. Don't blame this on anyone. Be a leader, lay out a plan, and I will suggest you, actually the President doesn't have to have this big amount of money. He could pick up the phone today, call the DOD, and direct them to have those 1,000 National Guard troops on the border.
So in other words, Governor, you don't particularly support the bill, and you're not going to be encouraging your delegation to pass it. Is that a fair assessment?
I think you have distilled the correct answer.
Let me see if I can make another distillation, Governor. There's a law. The laws on the books now seem to mean that if one of these children from Central America is able to set foot on American soil, he or she is entitled to be taken into custody, given an immigration hearing notice, and then cared for by the federal government until their case can be disposed of by a judge. That being the case, doesn't the law have to be changed to enable you to stem the flow of these children coming into the country?
Yes. Yes. Well, there are two things going on here. That law needs to be changed, partly because it is discriminatory, if it will, between other than Mexicans and individuals who come from Mexico. So that law needs to be changed. I think members of Congress understand it needs to be changed, both Democrats and Republicans. But the other side of that is to staunch this flow, you do not have to have a change of law. What you have to have is this clear presence on the border where people understand that you no longer can just freely go and walk across the Rio Grande and stay in America from now on. That's the message that was sent by these failed policies.
I get that that's the message, Governor. What I don't quite understand is how it is that with the law being the way it is, the presence of more troops or forces on the border who are not legally able to apprehend these immigrants, these border crossers, is going to change anything without the law being changed first.
Here's the way it will. The presence, and we've done this multiple times, we've surged large amounts of Texas law enforcement with local law enforcement and coordinating with our Border Patrol into sectors. We just don't have the ability on a 1,200-mile border to do that. About 20% of the individuals that are coming across are these unaccompanied alien children. You got 80% of the people out there that these laws don't fall into,
right.
But we're being pulled away having to deal with these children. And my point is, you bring boots on the ground to send that message clearly, both visually and otherwise. And at that particular point in time, I think this flow from Central America gets staunched by a substantial margin. The President would be wise to put those National Guard troops on the border, and he doesn't have to have Congress's approval for that. Pick up the phone, be a leader, make a difference.
Governor, I think we got the message. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes, sir.
Let us now bring in House Homeland Security Chairman Congressman Michael McFaul, also of Texas.